Found Wikipedia, whether through your browser or through the apps, okay? Call the person's name, called the Dickinson. Emily Dickinson. Emily Dickinson. Wow, 111 now. Dickinson. I'm gonna read the whole thing, okay?
Is it just like history on her?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's biography on her. Then stop making strong noises. I'm sorry for that, but we are recording things. So can give a lot of noise to the recordings.
What is the difference between biography and history?
Biography is a person's history, personal history. History is more general. You can see personal history. And so biography also more zoom in is like somebody study a person, the study a person.
History is like
a part of history. Yeah, every person, if they have autobiography or somebody write one for the person, you can call it biography. Okay, so yeah. I think the founding fathers like Thomas Jefferson, Franklin. What is her name? The old gentleman's name. Franklin.
Old gentleman? What do you mean?
The Franklin. Benjamin Franklin. Right. His autobiography. Yeah, you guys heard about those things? Benjamin Franklin's autobiography is very popular for American readers. So, yeah, it's very capable person. He all taught by himself. He has rules. He has a book. Different rules. Okay, Emily Dickinson. We're gonna start reading this. I'm gonna start first, then let the guy follow suit. Is that okay for you?
Sure.
So let's see. There's a mini paragraph. Oh, wow, that's a long one. Ooh, I like it. That's a lot of reading. So today we finish this reading. Will be good enough. Okay. So we're gonna take a turn every day about the 5 paragraphs, then done it. Okay. So Emily Dickinson, American poet, 1830 to 1888. So how many years he lived?
It's 1886, so it'd be 56.
56. So
right here it says age 55 is when she died.
This one says 86.
Right here.
This one says 1830.
are you reading the same thing with me?
I'm reading
Called
on Wikipedia.
Wikipedia. Okay.
Yeah.
Said 86. I don't know why yours is different.
It says 86, but it said her age was 55.
Oh, 55.
Still
Okay.
possible.
Yeah.
It depends on what month you're born.
Okay. Let's follow the text. Okay. So Emily Elizabeth Dickinson, December the 10th, 1830 to May 15th, 1886, was an American poet. Little known during his life, he has since been regarded one of the most important figures in American poetry. Dickinson was born in Amherst, Massachusetts, into a prominent family with a strong tie to its community. After studying at the Amherst Academy for several years in her youth, she briefly attended the Mount Holyoke Female Seminary before returning to her family's house in Amherst. Evidence suggests that Dickinson lived much of her life in isolation. Considered as eccentric by locals, she developed a penchant for white clothing and was known for her reluctance to greet guests or, later in life, to even leave her bedroom. Dickinson never married, and most friendships between her and others depend entirely upon correspondence. While Dickinson was a prolific writer, her only publication during her lifetime was 10 of her nearly 1,800 poems and 1 letter. The poems published were usually edited significantly to fit conventional poetic rules. Her poems were unique for her era. They certain They contain short lines, typically lack titles, and often use slang rhymes as well as unconventional capitalization and punctuation. Many of her poems deal with the themes of death and immortality, two recurring topics in letter to her friends, and also explore aesthetics, society, nature, and spirituality. All of Dickinson's acquaintances were most likely aware her writing was not until after her death in 1886, when Lavinia, Dickinson's younger sister, discovered her cache of poems, that her work became public. Her first collections of poetry was published in 1890 by personal acquaintances Thomas Wentworth Hutchinson and Mabel Loomis. Correct my pronunciation, okay? Mabel Loomis Todd. So both heavily edited the content. A 1998 article in the New York Times reveals that for the many edits made to Dickinson's work, the name Susan were often deliberately removed. At least 11 Dickinson's poems were dedicated to sister-in-law Susan Huntington Gilbert Dickinson, though all of the dedications were obliterated, presumably by Todd. A complete and mostly unaltered collection of her poetry became available for the first time when scholar Thomas H. Johnson published the poems of Emily Dickinson in 1955. Okay, we take this turn, okay? Now I'll go ahead.
Emily Elizabeth Dickinson was born at the family's homestead in Amherst, Massachusetts on December 10, 1830, into a prominent but not wealthy family. Her father, Edward Dickinson, was a lawyer in Amherst and a trustee of Amherst College. 200 years earlier, her patrilineal ancestors had arrived in the New World in the Puritan Great Migration, where they prospered. Emily Dickinson's paternal grandfather, Samuel Dickinson, was one of the founders of Amherst College. In 1813, he built a homestead, a large mansion on the town's main street that became the focus of Dickinson family life for the better part of a century. Samuel Dickinson's eldest son, Edward, was treasurer of Amherst College from 1835 to 1873, served in the Massachusetts House of Representatives and the Massachusetts Senate, and represented Massachusetts' 10th Congressional District in the 33rd U.S. Congress. On May 6, 1828, he married Emily Norcross from Monson, Massachusetts. They had 3 children: William Austin, known as Austin, Emily Elizabeth, and Lavinia Norcross, known as Lavinia or Vinnie. By all accounts, young Emily was a well-behaved girl. On an extended visit to Monson when she was 2, Emily's aunt Lavinia described Emily as perfectly well and contented. She is a very good child and but little trouble. Emily's aunt also noted the girl's affinity for music and her particular talent for the piano, which she called the music.
Music.
Dickinson attended primary school in a 2-story building on Pleasant Street. Her education was ambitiously classical for a Victorian girl. Wanting his children well educated, her father followed their progress even while away on business. When Emily was 7, he wrote home, reminding his children to keep school and learn so as to tell me when I come home how many new things you have learned. While Emily consistently described her father in a warm manner, her correspondence suggests that her mother was regularly cold and aloof. In a letter to a confidant, Emily wrote, "She always ran home to Austin, when a child, if anything befell me. He was an awful mother. He was an awful mother, but I liked him better than none." On September 7th, 1840, Dickinson and her sister Lavinia started together at Amherst Academy.
That's how girls talk sometimes.
A former boys' school.
They don't talk like boys. So. Called mother, father? That's interesting, huh? Mm-hmm.
Still learning her pronouns.
Mm-hmm. Awful mother.
Former boys' school that had opened to female students just 2 years earlier. At about the same time, her father purchased a house on North Pleasant Street. Emily's brother Austin later described this large new home as the mansion over which he and Emily presided as Lord and Lady while their parents were absent. The house overlooked Amherst's burial ground, described by one local minister as treeless and forbidding. You want me to continue?
10 years. Oh, yeah. Elijah can read on. So. Read the
You want me to
poem.
read in the blue box?
Yeah.
Whoa, this is long.
My teenage years.
Huh?
Very nice.
They shut me up in prose as when a little girl. They put me in a closet because they liked me still. Still, to themselves have peeped and seen my brain go round as might as wise. They might as wise have lodged a bird for treason in the pound.
That's a fun, yeah.
Is that one of her first college ones?
Uh-huh.
No idea.
I can't see where.
No, that's 1862. Describe her childhood. The parents lock her, the shining prose basically give her education, literature. Then set her in a closet. The closet is the home. Mansion is a closet. So she's a poetic thinker. So use poetic languages. Yeah, she don't call the nose a nose. Something smells. Joking. Okay, so go ahead.
Dickinson spent 7 years at the academy, taking classes in the English and classical literature, Latin, botany, geology, history, medical philosophy, and arithmetic.
Wow, they have a mental philosophy. I would like to know what that is. So.
Daniel Taggart Fisk, the school's principal at the time, would later recall that Dickinson was very bright and an excellent scholar of exemplary deportment. Goodness.
Did he eat lunch?
Maybe a little bit too much. Faithful in all school duties. Although she had few terms off due to illness, the longest of which was in 1845 through 1846, when she was enrolled for only 11 weeks. She enjoyed her strenuous studies. Writing to a friend at the academy was a very fine school. Dickinson was troubled from a young age by the deepening menace of death, especially the deaths of those who were close to her. And Sophia Holland, her second cousin and a close friend, grew ill from typhus and died in April 1844. Emily was traumatized. Recalling the incident 2 years later, Emily wrote that, "It seemed to me I should die too if I could not be permitted to watch over her or even look at her face." She became so melancholy.
Something in your stomach is upsetting.
No, my voice just cracks all the time. She became so melancholic that her parents sent her to stay with her family in Boston to recover. With her health and spirits restored, as soon as she returned to Amherst Academy to continue her studies. During this period, she met people to become lifelong friends and correspondents, such as Abba Root, Abby Wood, and James Humphrey, and Susan Huntington Gilbert, who later married Emily's brother, Austin.
Wow. Okay.
Gilbert is a fun name.
Gilbert. Gilbert.
Gilbert?
In 1845, a religious revival took place in Amherst, resulting in 46 confessions of faith among Dickinson's peers. Dickinson wrote to a friend the following year, "I never enjoyed such perfect peace and happiness as the short time which I felt when I had found my Savior." She went on to say that it was her greatest pleasure to commune alone with the great God, and to feel that He would listen to my prayers. The experience did not last. Dickinson never made a formal declaration of faith and attended services regularly, only for a few years. After her church-going ended, about 1852, she wrote a poem opening, "Some keep the Sabbath going to church, I keep it staying home."
Mm-hmm. She was sick about the shallowness in church those days, so to a very creative and spiritual mind is almost unbearable, right? So,
During the last year of her stay at the academy, Emily became friendly with Leonard Humphrey, its popular new young principal. After finishing her final term at the academy on August 10th, 1847, Dickinson began attending Maryland's Mount Holyoke Female Cemetery, which later
Cemetery would be something else.
I was like, that's just scary.
Seminary, which later became Mount Holyoke College in South Hadley, about 10 miles from Amherst. She stayed at the seminary for only 10 months. Although she liked the girls at Holyoke, Dickinson made no lasting friendships there. The explanations for her brief stay at Holyoke differ considerably. Either that she was in poor health, her father wanted to have her at home, she rebelled against the evangelical fervor present at the school, she disliked the discipline-minded teachers, or she was simply homesick. Wherever the reasons for leaving Holyoke, her brother Austin appeared on March 25th, 1848, to bring her home at all events. Back in Amherst, Dickinson occupied her time with household activities. She took up baking for the family and enjoyed attending local events and activities at the budding college town.
One of the things I understand those days, girls don't expect to be further educated, right? So it's normal for them to come a young age, attending society so they get married. Those are culture to the day, okay? So.
When she was 18, Dickinson's family befriended a young attorney by the name of Benjamin Franklin Newton. According to a letter written by Dickinson after Newton's death, he had been with my father 2 years before going to Worcester. In pursuing his studies and was much in our family, although the relationship was probably not romantic. Newton was a formative influence.
Who's teasing him?
Elijah keeps laughing and I keep laughing with him. It's okay. And would become the second in a series of older men. After Humphrey, Dickinson referred to variously as her tutor, preceptor, or master. Newton likely introduced her to the writings of William Wordsworth.
Yeah, very famous English poet. I have an autobiography myself, right? Nice. Yeah, very good.
And his gift to her of
Ralph Waldo Emerson's first book. Yeah.
I think I've heard that.
Yep, Emerson is very famous. Mm-hmm.
First book of collected poems had a liberating effect. She wrote later that he, whose name my father's law student taught me, has touched the secret spring.
Yeah, one of the key learn to concentrate Benjing is concentrate on what you're reading.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. So, but you are in a group setting. You don't want to distract yourself too much. Okay. So,
Right.
yeah, you have a task to carry. Concentrate on the task. Okay. So, go ahead.
Newton held her in high regard, believing in recognizing her as a poet. When he was dying of
Tuberculosis.
Tuberculosis, that's a difficult one. Yeah.
Tuberculosis.
Yes. He wrote to her saying he would like to live until she achieved the greatness he foresaw. Biographers believe that Dickinson's statement of 1862, when a little girl, I had a friend who taught me immortality. But venturing too near himself, he never returned. Dickinson was familiar with not only the Bible, but also contemporary popular literature.
What does contemporary means?
It's, I don't know, actually.
Doesn't last.
It doesn't last.
Just, I gotta sit like,
Okay.
right?
It means
Temporary
That would be
is not
temporary.
less.
Oh, I think.
Temporary. You got half it right, but absolutely wrong.
The opposite?
Is that the
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Contemporary means the same time, the same age, the same generation. Something.
She was probably influenced by Lydia Maria Child's letters from New York, another gift from Newton. After reading it, she gushed, This then is a book, and there are more of them.
That is another famous poet and that time. So beautiful poem. So.
Her brother smuggled a copy of Henry Wadsworth Longfellow's Cavana. How do you say that?
Cavana.
Into the house for her, because her father might disapprove.
Okay.
And a friend lent her Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre in late 1849.
Jane Eyre, right? Eyre.
Jane Eyre.
Yeah. So who read this book?
I did.
You did? Oh man, too much reading.
Jane, how do you say it? Eyre's?
Jane Eyre.
Jane Eyre's influence cannot be measured, but when Dickinson acquired her first...
Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't know why I got mixed up. It's actually like Jane Eyre, like A-I-R.
Okay.
Jane
Okay.
No, I said it wrong at first.
Me said it first.
Acquired her first and only dog, a Newfoundland. She named him Carlo, after the character St. John Rivers' dog. William Shakespeare was also a potent influence in her life. Referring to his plays, she wrote to one friend, Why clasp any hand but this? And to another, why is any other book needed?
Really? I'm thinking. Leo Tolstoy would seriously disagree with that one, huh? Yeah. So you stumbled over, finally get your way through.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very interesting.
Hurry up.
Adulthood and seclusion. In early 1850, Dickinson wrote that Amherst is alive with fun this winter. Oh, a very great town this is. Her high spirits soon turned to melancholy after another death. The Amherst. That's how you say it, Amherst?
No.
Amherst.
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 Amherst Academy principal, Leonard Humphrey, died suddenly of brain congestion at age 25.
What?
Whoa.
2 years.
Now you guys need to be careful, okay? If you're
What
not.
is brain congestion?
Yeah, what is that?
As evidently a conjured word those days describe certain things. I think it's maybe, like a brain some, stroke something. Yeah.
Blood clot.
Yeah.
2 years after his death, she revealed to her friend, Abba Root,
Abaya
Abaya,
root.
Abaya Ruth the extent of her sadness.
So how you pronounce Isaiah?
Isaiah.
Yeah, Abaya.
Right.
Yeah. Zechariah and Aya. Well, that's something funny.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some of my friends are gone, and some of my friends are sleeping. Sleeping the churchyard sleep. The hour of evening is sad. It was once my study hour. My master has gone to rest. The open leaf of the book and the scholar at the school alone make the tears come, and I cannot brush them away. I would not if I could, for they are the only tribute I can pay the departed company.
Now we understand master those days is a title given to a principal on the leading teaching figures, okay, in a faculty. So that's why we call it master degrees. Become a master, you got to have some education. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know what this house is. I guess it was.
It's yeah, that's what their home. Yeah.
Oh, it was the home of Austin and Susan's family.
That's a brother's
and it was
home.
built by their dad, it looks like.
It was built by
Okay.
Edward.
That's pretty good home, huh?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he built it. I think he used somebody's help to build it.
Well, it's
He built it
Edward.
by himself.
The
Wow.
Evergreens built by Edward Dickinson. During the 1850s, Emily's strongest and most affectionate relationship was with her sister-in-law, Susan Gilbert.
Gilbert.
Emily eventually sent her over 300 letters, more than to any other correspondent over the course of their relationship. Susan was supportive of the poet, playing the role of most beloved friend, influence, mouse, and advisor.
Muse.
Muse.
You muses me. You amuses me. That's muse me.
Whose okay, I know it.
Editorial. Sorry. Yeah. Yes. That's right.
Suggestions Dickinson sometimes followed. In an 1882 letter to Susan, Emily said, with the expectation of Shakespeare.
Exception.
With the exception of Shakespeare.
Don't be bothered. This is a difficult thing to read in this official, heavily adapt and academic style, writing. So
Yeah.
I didn't consider your age. You're gonna stumble over this, but you'll get it. When you get to Noah's age, it's like, what are you talking about? I don't think it's a good way to write, actually. So, something like that. He started somewhere, right? So, you have to forgive our impatience because we a little bit over advanced in such reading. So, yeah, you guys just started in a sense, or in the thicket of it. So, somebody even struggle like barely get through it. Guy who didn't want it. What are you eating, man? So.
A little frosty.
I'm joking with you, so. But go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
I'll be right back.
No way. Go ahead. With the exception of Shakespeare.
With the exception of Shakespeare, you have told me of more knowledge than any one living thing.
What? Where's the thing there? I don't see it.
Anyone living. The importance of Emily's relationship with Susan has widely been overlooked due to a point of view first promoted by Mabel Loomis Todd, who was involved for many years in a relationship with Austin Dickinson, who has diminished Susan's role in Emily's life due to her own poor relationship with her lover's wife.
That's terrible, huh?
Right. However, the notion of a cruel Susan was promoted by her romantic rival has been questioned, most especially by Susan and Austin's surviving children, with whom Emily was close. Many scholars interpret the relationship between Emily and Susan as a romantic one. In the Emily Dickinson Journal, Leona Koski wrote, Dickinson's letters to Gilbert express strong homoerotic feelings. Hormonic.
I don't think so. Okay, so we don't know, but that's more than reading into old relationships, you know. So now you understand that when those days people don't have a lodging, don't have things together, like lawyers use a bundle together, travel, they have a literally sleep in the same bed. So, you know, people don't have a lot of room to live on, especially when they're out in school, other settings, they become a very intimate relationships, you know. So making sense to you, you know. So President Lincoln lived with a friend for many years in one room, you know, stuff like that. So in today's context, it's hard to imagine those are norm, as a social norm relationship. So, well, however, when you live like that long, you form certain kind of very good intimate relationship. I mean, everyday talk. So unfortunately, that it continue people using modern day culture, modern day thing to almost recolor, rewrite history. So, making sense to you? So, yeah. Well, the reason is that Emily Dickinson is a very religious person, okay, very virtuous lady. You know, so yeah. Do you understand my point? Reading the poems is every day she actually thinking about the God all the time. So, read the poem, you always read her prayers, her relation with God. If you get acquainted with her, so yeah, go ahead.
She quotes from many of their letters, including the one from 1852 in which Emily proclaims, Susie, will you indeed...
Oh, other thing I want to end. Those days, people don't have emails, don't have phone, don't have anything. The only thing they can do to convey their innermost thoughts is writing long letter to describe what they're thinking, what they feel. So that's the fashion for the day. It's not the writing, you know, especially in the personal letters, always is talking about the inner thoughts with the details. That's the fashion for the day, okay? So like a father can write long things about things to children, especially husband and wife. You know, they're far away, they'll write a letter to each other, talking about how much they love it and with different cases, stuff like that. You know, you can read you know, that's just normal everyday thing because you don't have the phone, you know. So in a sense, my point, you know, those are personal correspondences. But once those letters writing down, it become a archive, it become things we then try to induce certain relationships, certain things not there. Or making sense to you, you know. So yeah.
In a book we had read when we were reading a book called Little House on the Prairie, where they would send a letter to their family, and it wouldn't. They said like they did it in the summer, and hopefully they would get one back next
Absolutely,
summer.
many months later, yes.
It would take that long, like almost a year.
Yes,
to get the
because transportation and the mail is very expensive. So when they write, they want to be very intimate, you know.
Right.
So yeah, we're
letter.
yeah, exactly. So go ahead.
Susie, will you indeed come home next Saturday and be my own again and kiss me? I hope for you so much and feel so eager for you. Feel that I cannot wait. Feel that now I must have you. That the expectation, once more, to see your face again, makes me feel hot and feverish, and my heart beats so fast. My darling,
that
one year
is.
I seem to you, and I disdain this pen, and wait for a warmer language. The relationship between Emily and Susan is portrayed in the film Wild Nights with Emily, and explored in the TV series Dickinson.
Well, I have never heard about that. So. Also, speaking of common sense, okay, but evidently there are things people go beyond borders, you know, with the literary passion. So, go ahead. Especially a poet is very, very, what do you call it? It's sensitive or whatever. So, yeah. You need to read Lincoln letters, okay? They have this huge correspondence letter. Lincoln, man, as a lawyer, okay? She's gonna write a very interesting poem, interesting letter to Mary, her wife, you know. So, yeah.
Well, okay, this is the third time they've changed her name. It's Susie, Susan, and Sue now.
Yeah, it's the same man, the same person.
Did you not see the nicknames that noticed it?
Mhm.
Oh yeah. Sue married Austin in 1856 after a 4-year courtship, though their marriage was not a happy one. Edward Dickinson built a house for Austin and Sue, naming it the Evergreens, a stand of which was located on the west side of the homestead.
Can you read louder?
Yes.
This.
Until 1855, Dickinson had not strayed far from Amherst. That spring, accompanied by her mother and sister, she took one of her longest and furthest trips away from home. First, they spent 3 weeks in Washington, where her father was representing Massachusetts in Congress. Then they went to Philadelphia for 2 weeks to visit family. In Philadelphia, she met Charles Wadsworth, a famous minister of the Ark Street Presbyterian Church.
Presbyterian is a Calvinist. Okay, so yeah.
With him, she forged a strong relationship which lasted until his death in 1882. Despite seeing him only twice after 1855, he moved to San Francisco in 1862. She variously referred to him as my Philadelphia, how do you say? Clergyman, and my dearest earthly friend, and my shepherd from little girlhood.
Okay, let's next person read on. I guess it's too long, so.
From mid-1850s.
You look at me with a strange look. I don't know, was lost or
That
not.
means I don't want to read.
Oh, well, there you go. Everybody has a look, read. So.
Emily's mother became effectively bedridden with
Various
chronic illnesses until her death in 1882. Writing to a friend in summer 1858, Emily said she would visit if she could leave home or mother. If she could leave home or mother, I do not go out at all, lest father will come and miss me, or miss some little act, which I might forget should I run away. Mother is much as usual. I know not what to hope of her. As her mother continued to decline, Dickinson's domestic responsibilities weighed more heavily upon her, and she confined herself within the homestead. 40 years later, Lavinia said that because their mother was chronically ill, one of the daughters had to remain always with her. Emily took this role as her own. In finding the life with her books and nature so congenial, continued to live it.
Well, congenial means pleasant, appealing or whatever, delightful. So.
Withdrawing more and more from the outside world, Emily began in the summer of 1858 what would be her lasting legacy. Reviewing poems she had written previously, she began to make clean copies of her work, assembling carefully pieced together manuscript books. The 40
fascicles. Mm-hmm.
She created from 1858 through 1865.
Fascicle is a copy from one set of writing to another writing. Okay, this is big copies basically. Mm-hmm.
Eventually held nearly 800 poems. No one was aware of the existence of these books until after her death. In the late 1850s, the Dickinsons befriended Samuel Bowles, the owner and editor-in-chief of the Springfield Republican, and his wife, Mary. They visited the Dickinsons regularly for years to come. During this time, Emily sent him over 3 dozen letters and nearly 50 poems. Their friendship brought out some of her most intense writing in
Does that not say Bowles or what?
bowl, like a bowl, right?
Bowls.
Bowls. Yeah.
I like bowls.
Like a
Pretty
bowl.
sure it's vowels.
Bowels is yours. That's terrible.
Yeah.
I know.
Okay, finish that. Published a few of her poems in his journal. It was from 1858 to 1861 that Dickinson is believed to have written a trio of letters that have been called the Master Letters. These 3 letters, drafted to an unknown man simply referred to as Master, continued to be the subject of speculation and contention amongst scholars. The first half of the 1860s.
Some of you may become a Dickinson scholar. Who knows someday? Oh, most likely it's you guys. Don't sigh. You never know what life leading.
She had largely withdrawn from social life, proved to be Dickinson's most productive writing period. Modern scholars and researchers are divided as to the cause for Dickinson's withdrawal and extreme seclusion. While she was diagnosed as having nervous
Prostration, obviously, yeah.
by physician during her life. Some today believe she may have suffered from illnesses as various as I don't know.
Agoraphobia. I think is about not associated with people, a lot of people. And epilepsy is some disease, maybe disabled people. I don't know exactly, no. Okay, so you can read to the link so later on. So, okay, next person. Who is the next person now?
Me.
Good.
Is my verse alive? In April 1862, Thomas Wentworth Higginson, a literary critic, radical. Okay.
Abortionist.
Abolitionist.
Sorry, that's terrible.
Wait, you have
Abolitionist. Sorry, that's terrible, man. So there's no R there, okay? Abolitionist.
An ex-minister wrote a lead piece for
A lead
piece for the Atlantic Monthly.
Monthly.
Titled.
It's okay. You might want to enlarge the letter on your phone. There's a T there. Yeah. So you can do it larger.
Titled Letter to a Young Contributor, Higginson's essay in which he argued aspiring writers to charge your style wishing to break into print. Dickinson's decision to contact Dickinson suggested that by 1862 she was contemplating publication, and that it may have become increasingly difficult to write poetry without an audience. Seeking literary guidance that no one close to her could provide, Dickinson sent him a letter which read in full.
Why not you repeat what you read there? So we started off.
Literary.
I'm talking started from the beginning. Is my words alive? We're gonna concentrate to improve your reading.
Sorry.
No.
As soon as I start to read, like it seems easy when other people are reading. So I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
wow, I'm gonna do good.
No. You're doing good. We're doing good. Well, it's a process of learning. As I learn patience, okay? Learn to help you. So don't worry about it.
In April 1862, Thomas Wentworth Higginson, a literary critic.
See? Perfect. Just need to I think your reading not extensive. You have a hard time to understand the sentences. So yeah, that's why. So
Radical I already need help. I'm sorry.
abolitionist.
In Exminster wrote a lead piece for the Atlantic Monthly titled Letter to a Young Contributor. Higginson's essay, in which he argued
He urged somebody is hurry somebody to do something.
urged
Right?
aspiring writers to
What does
chart
aspiring mean? Anybody knows? Aspiring means aspiring. I don't think anybody knows. Aspiring, it means desire eagerly to be somebody, Aspiring poet, aspiring writer,
Like,
aspiring.
If you want what your job will be, I aspire to do.
Exactly. Aspiring actor, something. Go ahead.
Okay, let me find where that because I lost my thought. Okay. Charge your style with life. Contained practical advice for those wishing to break into print. Dickinson decided to contact Higginson. Higginson suggests that by 1862 she was
Contemplating is thinking about.
Contemplating publication, and that it may have become increasingly difficult to write poetry without an audience.
Okay, well, let's diagnose this sentence. Long sentence, okay? This is a long sentence. Dickinson decision. That's one cluster word called a meaning group, okay? Dickinson's decision. Then a verb always means something acting out. It's our subject. So to contact whom? Dickinson. To contact Dickinson. So then that's together become a bigger cluster words, right? Our main theme. Decision to contact somebody. Dickinson decision to contact Higginson. You want to learn grammar, that's how you learn grammar, how to read in cricket breaks. You have where to stop, this is where you stop. Dickinson decision to contact Higginson suggested that's mean word for the whole thing, right? The whole sentence hung on this one key word. Suggests that by 1862, that is, just give the time, a time clause. Okay, so she was doing that. That is meaning another sentence started, another cluster word started. She was contemplating publication, and that. So it's a parallel here, and that she was contemplating the second thing now. It may have become increasingly difficult. She was not contemplating. Suggests that by that time such a thing happened. One is she wanted to publish her poems. Second, it may have become increasingly difficult to write poetry without audience. So there are two things happened to her. She wanted to make a contact, make her poems known, right? So that's the main thing. Can you read that sentence again with the breaking down of the cluster words? Go ahead.
Dickinson's decision to contact Higginson suggested that by 1862 she was contemplating publication, and it may have become increasingly difficult to write poetry without an audience.
That's a perfect. Very good. The last
one. Literary guidance that no one close to her could provide. Dickinson sent him a letter which read in full.
Perfect. Wow, impressive now. So I'm going to finish this rest of the section for you. So is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Mr. Hankinson, are you too deeply occupied to say if my words is alive? The mind is so near to itself, it can see distinctly, and I have none to ask. Should you think it breathed, and had you the leisure to tell me, I should feel quickly gratitude. If I make the mistake that you dare to tell me, would give me sincere honor towards you. I enclose my name, asking you, if you please, sir, to tell me what is true. Then you will not betray me. It is needless to ask, since honor is not its own palm. This highly nuanced and largely theatrical letter was unsigned, but she had included her name on a card and enclosed it in an envelope along with 4 of her poems. He praised her work, but said that she delayed publishing until she had written longer, being unaware she had already appeared in print. She assured him the publishing was as foreign to her as foreign to Finn. Finn is a fish, right? She has a very interesting thinking pattern. Finn is a fish, Foreman is a lad, So. But also proposed that if fame belonged to me, I could not escape her. Dickinson delighted in dramatic self-characterization and the mystery in her letter to Hutchinson. She said of herself, I am small, like the rim, and my hair is bald, like the chestnut burr, but my eyes like the sherry in the glass that the guest leaves. Okay. She stressed her solitary nature, seeing her only companions were the hills, the sundown, and her dog Carlo. She also mentioned that whereas her mother did not care for thought, her father brought her books, but begged her not to read them because he feared the jungle, the mind. Seriously? Okay. Dickinson valued his wife's going from calling him Mr. Hankinson to dear friend, as well as assigning her letter your what?
No.
Know me? Know me.
No.
No, and you're a scholar. He's interested in her work. Certainly provided great moral support. Many years later, Dickinson told Hankinson that the hand saved her life in 1862. They corresponded until her death, but her difficulty in expressing her literary needs and reluctance to enter into a cooperative exchange left Hankinson nonplussed. He did not press her to publish in subsequent correspondence. Dickinson's own ambivalence on the matter militated against the likelihood of publication. Well, that's interesting wording. I'm not militating against. Can you believe that? Big word. Literary critic Emma Wilson, in his review for Civil War literature, surmised that with encouragement she would certainly have published. Okay, so next one continuing called Woman in White. Have you heard that?